Today we're back looking at some creepy true crime TikToks.
Please be warned that this true crime case is incredibly disturbing. This man killed his son after his son found his horrifying selfies.
Okay, so I think I actually recognize this story. If I am correct, this guy's son basically went onto a camera or like a hard drive and found photos of the father would never ever want anyone else to see. I will give you guys a little bit of a warning. Some of these videos are a bit gruesome, but this one right here is proper shocking.
You'll feel physically sick by what this man photographed.
You will.
It was 2012 and Mark Redwine was living in picturesque Colorado. Mark had been divorced twice and had 2 kids with his ex-wife Elaine. The pair were in a custody battle over 13-year-old Dylan Redwine. Dylan had actually expressed to his brother Corey that he felt uncomfortable visiting his dad. It would later be revealed the likely reason for this. Some horrifying images that the brothers found in 2011. On the 18th of November, Mark picked Dylan up from the airport. Dylan had finally agreed to go on a trip to visit his dad. CCTV from the airport showed that the pair were barely interacting. Via text, Dylan agreed that the next day he would go to his friend's house. He was due to arrive there about 6:30 a.m. the next day. His last text was that night at 9:37 p.m. However, Dylan never showed up at his friend's house. His friend sent Dylan a text message at 6:46 a.m. seeing where he was. Unfortunately, he would never get a reply. Mark would later claim that Dylan had left the house and never returned. A huge search of the local area began. Now, within days of the disappearance, one of Mark's ex-wives told police something interesting. Disturbingly, he told her that if he ever had to get rid of a body, he would dispose of it in the mountains. He also apparently said to her that he would kill the kids before he let her have them. Mark was actually interviewed on TV and asked about his ex-wife's allegations against him. He appeared very suspicious to viewers and was talking about Dylan in the past tense. A whole 7 months passed until Dylan's body was tragically found. He was found only around 8 miles from Mark's house, just off an ATV trail. A witness actually came forward and said that they had seen Mark driving alone in the area in April 2013. Mark was very familiar with that area and actually owned an ATV himself. Mark and Dylan's mum also appeared on the Dr. Phil show. Basically, the episode was just them throwing allegations at each other. Interestingly, Mark failed to do a lie detector test. Then a telling discovery was made. In August 2013, police found Dylan's blood and human cadaver smell in Mark's lounge. A cadaver dog also indicated that human remains were present in the washing machine, on Mark's clothes, and in Mark's vehicle. Mark was arrested for second-degree murder and child abuse. So what were these disgusting photographs that the boys had found? The pair had discovered photos of Mark dressed in women's underwear consuming feces out of a nappy. I obviously cannot show these images on TikTok for obvious reasons, but you can find them on Google, but just be very prepared for disgusting images. Dylan and his dad's relationship had been gradually declining, and Dylan had actually asked his brother to send him the images so that Dylan could confront his dad. He had no idea that doing so would be fatal. The prosecution stated that this had triggered rage in Mark. He then killed his own son in the lounge of his house. He was eventually sentenced to 48 years in prison.
Yeah, so basically the son found photos of the dad that the dad never wanted anyone to see. And whenever the dad found out that they found the photos, he took his life. Oh, it's just so heartbreaking, isn't it? And then yet again, if you think back to the beginning of the video, she was talking about how the son didn't really like to go to see the dad. Is there a reason why? Sometimes you get a weird vibe off people, and that's why you always have to trust your gut. Help the photos rest easy, Dylan. Yeah, so don't look up the photos. You can Google them if you want to. I personally wouldn't recommend it. I remember looking at the photos like a few years ago, and trust me, they're really, really weird. It's basically him just like in a dress, wearing like a nappy, pooing himself and like eating his poo. It's weird. I also think it's so interesting how obviously that was his dad and he never knew about that, but that dad had like a secret life. He had that part of his life that he liked to indulge in and take photos of, and it really proves you don't really know people. You might think you know somebody, but you really don't. I bet you nobody expected his dad to be doing stuff like that. I mean, if he wants to do it in his own time, he can. He's not harming anyone. However, what ended up happening in the end was him harming his son by taking his life whenever he found the photos. I'm worried about whose nappy it was as well, and that hopefully no children were involved or harmed. Okay, so I don't think he did involve any children. Basically, I think he had a thing where like to dress up as like a princess and poo himself and like eat his poo. It's really weird. If you look at the footage, you can. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it, but I do think it was like his own poo. But then on the flip side, like the son didn't really like being with him. Is there a reason for that? I don't know. It's just awful, isn't it? It's just awful that like a young boy's life was taken, especially by his father. I was not prepared for those photos. How can anyone hurt their own babies beyond me? I honestly think the reason the dad hurt his son in that way was because the son found out. I think the dad never intended to let anybody know that side of him. He wanted to keep that private. And quite clearly the pictures were eventually found, and now that he knew that someone knew about it, he had to take them out. It's just awful, isn't it? Like, it just breaks my heart, the fact that like a young son lost his life and the dad done it as well.
This is one of the biggest twists in a UK true crime case that I've ever come across. It was 2015 in Cambridgeshire. Ricardas Pusis, originally from Lithuania, came to the UK for a better life. He was a hard-working man and got a job on a local leek farm. However, things would take a horribly dark turn for Ricardas. He vanished in September 2015. Police were informed that he had left work in Chatteris on the 26th of September. He then met up with a group of other Lithuanian men socially that evening. However, the alarm was raised when he didn't show up to work 2 days later. Concerningly, his ID badge was then found in a local park. Police received shocking tip-offs stating that he'd been exploited, and they launched a murder investigation in November 2015. They utilised all resources they had to try and attempt to find his body. Then in December, a breakthrough. A 31-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of murder. Despite having not found Ricardas, the investigation was progressing. The man was questioned about his contact with Ricardas prior to him going missing. Disturbingly, witnesses reported that the pair had got into a physical altercation after the man told Ricardas that he owed him £1,000. The man then allegedly hit Ricardas over the head and blood had been pouring out. Ricardas was then shockingly beaten with a pole and was seen stumbling around. That was the last time the witnesses saw him. However, despite this disturbing account, the man was released by police. Frustratingly, the case hit a lot of dead ends and the police were stumped. Then, 4 years later, in 2019, his sister got a Facebook message.
That's creepy.
She had obviously feared the worst for her brother after the original murder investigation. However, the Facebook message was of somebody claiming to be Ricardas. She told police she was convinced it was her brother. Investigators actually traced the profile and found that it was being used through the Wi-Fi of a nearby Asda. They obviously had suspicions that this may just be somebody posing as the missing man. An agonising 6 months later, after trained negotiators stepped in, Ricardas was found alive. Astonishingly, he'd actually been living in the woods off Harecroft Road for 5 years. He had a makeshift hut and kept himself remarkably clean. He'd scavenged for food and used old discarded clothing that he found. He even found someone's old phone and was able to use it through the Asda Wi-Fi. He avoided people and stayed in his hut throughout the day. Understandably scared and vulnerable, Ricardas was spoken to by police officers who tried to reassure him. He would eventually speak about his experience. He stated about the beating before he disappeared. "It was very painful. I couldn't stand up. I turned around to the door and ran. I didn't know where to go. I turned left, there was a little park. I went to the park and hid in the bushes." The man that was actually released by police during the investigation currently has a warrant out for his arrest over allegations of modern slavery.
Okay, well, I think it's good that the guy was found in the end and, like, he wasn't dead. We talk about the person who was arrested for it. Like, why has he got allegations of modern slavery? That is just crazy. So that guy had basically been living in the forest for, like, 4 years. Why didn't he contact his sister? Was he genuinely that scared? I want to know who scared him. This happened about 20 minutes from where I live. Oh my god, could you actually imagine that? Could you imagine something like that happening near you? Somebody goes missing, somebody's found dead. I'm telling you right now, if someone in my area went missing, I would not be leaving my house until they were found and whoever done it was arrested. Because if somebody goes missing, that means that someone else has most likely done it. And if it's in your area, it could be a local neighbour. This was in Wisbech where I live. Everyone in the town felt sorry for this poor man. I mean, I feel bad for him too. He's literally been like living in a forest for 4 years. And then also, can we talk about this? Imagine if somebody was actually convicted for like his murder, even though they had no proof that he was dead. That's happened before. People have been arrested and accused of doing crimes and then sentenced for murdering him whenever they never done it. There's a documentary about a BBC or like an old TV presenter from the 1990s who was murdered in London, and they arrested somebody and charged him for the murder, and he spent years in jail for it. Isn't it quite crazy to think that you can literally be innocent of a crime but you still get put into jail? Imagine that happening to you. That would be awful.
This girl unalived her little brother, then consumed his private parts.
I'm so sorry. What? What's going on with these people?
This is 5-year-old Maikon Rauk and his 18-year-old sister Karina, and they both live with their mother Daniela in Brazil. On April 4th of 2019, Daniela had to do some shopping, so she left Maikon back at home with Karina. Daniela returned home over an hour later, and for some reason she wasn't able to open the front door, just wouldn't open. Daniela had yelled for her children to come help open the door for her, but Karina yelled back that she couldn't open it for her. Daniela started to get worried, so she had contacted her brother-in-law to come break down the door. Once they both got inside the home, they were met with a horrific scene. Karina had unalived Maikon, partially decapitated him, and mutilated him.
Why?
The family dog started to attack Karina, and she retaliated and bit the dog. Karina then started to attack the uncle by throwing things at him and hitting him. She even tried to flee the scene, but she was luckily caught. Once police had arrived and saw Maikon's body, they saw that his body was surrounded by black candles. That's when they discovered that Karina had cut and eaten some parts of Maikon's body. Karina was quickly arrested and taken to the police station. At first, Karina refused to speak, but later on, she confessed everything. She stated that she asked Maikon if he wanted to come in her room to play some games, and of course, Maikon agreed. Karina grabbed a pillow, pinned him down, and suffocated him. Karina then grabbed a knife and tried to remove his head. She had left Maikon partially decapitated. Karina then inserted the knife into his eyes and burned his feet with a lighter. She then removed his genitals and ate them. Karina was charged with aggravated homicide, attempted murder of her uncle, hiding a dead body, and biting the family dog. Karina was sent to a psychiatric hospital, and she continues to receive medical, social, and psychological care.
Okay, well that right there was a lot. How could someone ever do that? Like, I know whenever we watch these videos, we think it's so interesting how someone could do something like that, but I think you have to keep in mind that happened. That actually happened. A 5-year-old went through that. I don't even know where to start. That was just horrific. She looks possessed. With a lot of these people, you can always tell that something's off. Whether it's serial killers, school shooters. Like, I don't know how to describe it. They just look weird. They look evil. Evil people have a certain look to them, and I think it's the fact that they've got eyes, but there's like no soul behind the eyes. So like, if you look directly into their eyes, it just looks soulless, like there's nothing there. The pain that he felt when he went through this is just sick and sad, exactly, and it was a 5-year-old. It doesn't matter how old somebody is, it's the fact someone went through that and they do that. It makes you think why, and then there was like black candles around him. Was she like possessed by a demon? Was she going through a mental health crisis? Like what? It's just crazy to think that could happen, and you also keep in mind anyone could do that. Your family member could do that. That was a sister doing that to her little 5-year-old brother. I mean, imagine your sibling trying to do that to you. That poor child, how could people be able to do this even with kids? And not even that, it was her brother. Exactly, that was her little brother. And yet again, it makes you think like, why? What was going through her head? Why did she do that? Like, she always wanted to do that. It's just awful. And yet again, like, that actually happened. Like, this isn't like a made up scary story. This is a real true crime case.
This girl killed her mum and then texted a photo of her body to her dad. In 2013, Rachel Hudson and her family were supposed to be celebrating Thanksgiving at their home in Virginia. However, the holiday would take a horrendously sinister turn. Rachel's mum was terminally ill 58-year-old Susan Lee. Rachel had been her mum's carer since she was just 9 years old. On the evening in question, Rachel and her dad got into an argument. When her dad left the house the next day to make the most of the Black Friday sales, Rachel did something unthinkable. She took a weapon out of the wardrobe and loaded it. She apparently thought about unaliving herself at this point, but she didn't want to put her mum through the trauma of finding her body. She then walked into the room where her mum was and said, "I'm sorry, this is what has to happen." Her mum apparently told her, "You're crazy," and this is the point where Rachel killed her mum. When she texted her dad to break the news to him, he obviously didn't believe what she was saying. She then took a photo of her mum's body and texted it over to her dad. Rachel was sentenced initially to 50 years in prison, but this was reduced to 18 years because of an apparent undiagnosed mental illness.
Whenever you're sent a photo like that, especially from a gun, I think a lot of people think it looks like the movies where there's just a small bullet hole. Nah, I'm so sorry, it's completely different. In some cases, they're not even recognizable. That's just so awful. How can someone that young do something like that? I couldn't imagine harming my mum. That's my mummy, bro. Exactly, I'm with you. Like, sometimes my mum really irritates me and I absolutely hate her. However, I'd never do that. That right there is insane. It makes you kind of think, like, was something else going on? I don't know. Was it over an argument or was something else going on behind the scenes? She was under a lot of stress. She might have been under a lot of stress, but it doesn't mean she can do that. Just because you're under stress doesn't mean you can shoot somebody. I can understand she's 13. She's trying to take care of her mummy's dad. She's got into an argument with her dad and she's upset. That's just a no-go. There's more to the story. That's what I was thinking. Like, I feel like something else might be going on. Was it really over an argument? I mean, she was 13. You know, what 13-year-old does that? And did say that she had, like, some mental disorder. I don't know. That's just a bit fishy, isn't it?
This is shocking footage showing the moment an Arizona woman allegedly tried killing her U.S. Air Force worker husband by poisoning his coffee with bleach.
Oh,
Melody
God.
Felicano Johnson, who was arrested after being accused of pouring a toxic substance into her husband Roby Johnson's morning coffee, is believed to have done it as a means of collecting her husband's death benefits. Roby Johnson was stationed in Germany for work in March 2023 when he thought his coffee started tasting very bad. His wife would prep his coffee the night before, so in the mornings, he just had to turn it on to have his caffeine fix. As a result of his suspicions, Roby purchased pool chemical testing strips and set up cameras at their permanent stateside home, and it is using these cameras that Roby caught his wife pouring bleach into the coffee maker on multiple occasions. Melody has since been indicted by a grand jury on charges of first-degree attempted murder, attempting to commit aggravated assault and poisoning food or drink.
Imagine you marry somebody and then through a camera you see them basically trying to kill you. What is going on with these people? How did a husband have any idea to set a camera above it? I mean, I'm just gonna assume that he got loads of cameras and like put them up. Either way, he shouldn't need to do that. No wife should be trying to kill her husband. She's wild and she's also now in jail for trying to take her husband's life. It's just crazy to me that you can literally fall in love with somebody, marry them, and then they try to take your life to get money. It's just insanity. Well, anyways guys, that is some true crime TikToks. If you see me looking more of these videos in the future, let me know definitely will. Press bigger, subscribe, and see you all tomorrow for another video.